Hello, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. I will be presenting on unconditional love in young adult literature. But before I dive into the subject matter, I want you to ponder for a few seconds. What does love mean to you? So I was curious what photos would populate Google Images when typing in the word love. And on the first page, these four were located, as well as many others that were very similar to these photos. It's interesting to note that all four of these photos, and the ones that were on the first page, were predominantly about romantic love. In English, however, the word love means many different things, and I'm sure you all came up with different images and meanings love has for you. There are many different types of love, from love for people, to animals, to objects, to actions, to passions. And even within our relationships, we recognize we love our parents differently from our spouses and romantic partners, our children, our religious figures, our friends, our coworkers, and other individuals in the community. In ancient Greece, philosophers frequently discussed the different types of love. And if you ever go back and read any of the ancient Greek books, you will see that these terms were frequently used. I will be talking about three of these terms that they came up with for love, three that are the most commonly found in young adult literature. These are eros, storge, and philia, romantic love, familial love, and friendship love. So the first one is eros, from which we get the English word erotic. Eros was the word often used to express sexual love, or feelings of arousal that are shared between individuals that are physically attracted to each other. The word was also the name of the Greek god of love, Eros, who you may know more commonly as Cupid, which was the Roman god of love. This type of love is passionate, it's romantic, it's the type that partners say, I love you. It's emotional, and this type of love usually has to do with attraction, or at least at first. One of the most famous examples of Eros is Romeo and Juliet. These star-crossed lovers fell in love with each other. As you can see from the first quote from Romeo and the second one from Juliet, these young lovers were driven to defy their social worlds, to cut across any of the differences their families, the Capulets and Montagues, faced. Their love superseded these values, their loyalties, their emotions, and they constantly fought to be together. Another type of love that is commonly found in young adult literature is storge. This is the Greek word for natural affection. It is the familial love, love between you and your parent, between you and your sibling. We see this between the mother and the daughter in Persepolis, and we see this between Katniss Everdeen and her sister Primrose in The Hunger Games. Arguably, Katniss would never have participated in the 74th annual Hunger Games if it weren't for her love for her sister. We see her volunteering as tribute to protect her sister's life. She puts her own life in danger in order to protect Primrose. There isn't that much interaction between Primrose and Katniss in the first book, but it is still clear that Primrose loves Katniss and wants her to return. As you can see in the second quote, that is right before Katniss goes off to the capital, that Primrose wants her to return, that she loves her deeply and wholeheartedly. Another type of love is philia. This is the type of love we feel for our friends, but not in an erotic sense, but rather in a kind and an affectionate manner. It is for friends that we love. We love the goodwill and friendship. It's the understanding that this love transforms into an impulse to be with one another. It is not romantic, but you still feel connected to the people you are with. You trust them, you can rely on them, and you respect them. And the loss of a deep friendship can be just as painful as the loss of a romantic friendship or like romantic relationship. One of the most famous books in young adult literature that explores philia is Perks of Being a Wallflower. While there is a little bit of eros between Charlie and Sam, I would argue that philia is the most enduring type of love we see in this book. You can see in this quote from Charlie talking about Sam and Patrick, two friends of his, throughout the book, that he saw their friendship as platonic love, and it was based on affection and warmth. Just being around those people made him happy. So now I want to talk about unconditional love, and then tie those three types of love that we just talked about into unconditional love. So before I talk about what unconditional love is, let me mention what it isn't. So these are three common misconceptions individuals have about what unconditional love is. First, unconditional love does not mean that you won't argue or fight with that individual. It's usually inevitable that you'll get into some type of disagreement. Conflict is healthy and normal between friends, family, romantic partners, and you don't need to ignore it. Additionally, unconditional love does not mean that you'll accept abuse. Loving someone without conditions cannot be under the premise that you're being abused physically, emotionally, and or psychologically. A sense of safety is a basic human need. And unconditional love doesn't mean staying in an unhealthy relationship when you're better off leaving. Finally, unconditional love does not mean neglecting your own needs. It's true that sacrifice is usually inevitable in love and relationships, but it doesn't mean that you're required to give everything that you want and need for yourself in order to love. An individual should feel comfortable setting boundaries, and the other person should feel comfortable respecting those boundaries and any requests that someone would have. So now, what does unconditional love mean? It can mean many different things depending on the person, but generally psychologists agree that it flows without effort from someone's heart rather than consciously from one's mind. It exists in the absence of any benefit for the lover. A person should feel safe that they're not going to lose someone's affection for minor setbacks and mistakes. People aren't perfect, and nearly everyone makes a few regretful decisions. Unconditional love, however, requires unconditional acceptance. So you'd forgive mistakes and continue to offer love and acceptance, even if those choices may cause momentarily harm or distress to you. Finally, it's an altruistic way to love. You don't consider any potential benefits of loving the other person. You offer your love for their support and their benefit. So, this definition of unconditional love sounds pretty burdensome. It sounds pretty demanding to ask of someone to love someone unconditionally. Do you think unconditional love exists? There is no right or wrong answer, but I want you to ponder this question. Consider the love you have for someone in your life. It could be a partner, a friend, a parent. What made you fall in love with them originally? Were you attracted to a certain characteristic of theirs, their sense of humor, their intelligence, their kindness, their physical looks? If they no longer had that characteristics, would your love continue, and would it look any different? Love grows and alters over time, in part because people change. Years from now, your partner may not be the same person you said I do to at your wedding. And if the characteristics that made you fall in love with them never change, you may never genuinely know whether your love was truly unconditional. So you may be asking now, so how does this all relate to young adult literature? Well, a major theme of many young adult books revolves around identity exploration, in which love plays an integral part in many adolescents' discovery of who they are and what makes them happy. They may be asking themselves, where do I fit in? And will other people accept me? It can be a confusing and awkward time Discovering who you are and certain love relationships can allow individuals to come to terms with their individual identities, whether it be a sexual orientation or gender identity, or simply qualities such as personality traits that they desire in themselves or in others. It's important to recognize that the love we see in young adult protagonists engage in tends to look very differently during the adolescent period, as the initial characteristics that drew them into the people that they love may change as the years progress, and certain events, such as marriage, death of a loved one, and college, pose challenges to these relationships they established when they were young. Often, adolescents are exploring eros and urges to act on sexual impulses for the first time. As their hormones increase, their thoughts during puberty about dating and sex. Additionally, the reasons adolescents fall in love may be different than how they do later in life. Reasons such as rebelling against their parents or society may be the catalyst for why they pursue a certain person when they're younger. That just wouldn't be the case when they're older. Reasons unconditional love, particularly, is explored in young adult literature is that unconditional love can provide a sense of security in both childhood and the transition into adulthood. This is essential as feeling confident in someone's love and knowing it won't go away can help create secure attachments and foster high self worth, independence, and autonomy, which are three desires often craved by adolescents in young adult books and in real life. Unconditional love extends across eros, storge, and philia. When it comes to eros, unconditional love might be tested through first love relationships as conditions change, such as one person having a life altering health or medical condition, such as in The Fault in Our Stars, or changes in someone's personality or their looks. In Storge, if you know your parents or caregivers will continue to love you even after you make mistakes or do things they don't approve of, from failing a class in your high school um, or getting in trouble with the law, you'll feel more comfortable in making your own choices and learning from them as you progress in age. In the context of philia, unconditional love could be tested through conflicts, such as fallouts with middle school friends as you transition into high school, as well as high school friends throughout your time there, in addition to differing life goals between friends, such as going to college, going into the workforce, or going into the military. Recognizing if unconditional love exists in these books is imperative in understanding why characters pursue certain actions. If they feel loved unconditionally, they will feel secure enough to push boundaries and make mistakes. If they feel love that's in an unconditional sense to others, they will do almost everything in their power to protect that other person, as we had seen with Katniss and Primrose. So I want to end this presentation with this quote from a Greek proverb that sums up the vigor and excitement we often see in the early stages of love, that individuals can continue to strive to replicate later in their life too, even when they're not adolescents. The heart that loves is always young.